This play is called Cost of War. It was created by us, the veterans of Bedlam Outreach. That's an acting class that's been going on for 7 years now. Some of us have been coming for a long time. What's up, Eddie? You can call it a class, sure. But for us, it's more than that. It's community. It's performing, studying, creating, but it's also connecting, remembering, laughing, hoping, complaining, and most importantly, caring about one another. Our town may be New York City, but we come from different places, different generations, and different branches of service. We come together here to make a home on a stage. We'd like to share with you who we are because you showed up, so apparently you care to listen. Thank you for that, we appreciate it. We'd like you to be entertained, sure, but we'd also like you to see us. And most importantly, we hope to broaden and deepen your understanding of war and the military, even if in just some small way. So, any vets in the house? All right. How'd the recruiter get you? Or was it those catchy little videos where everybody just spends their whole time flying out of helicopters or working on these crazy computers? Yeah, they didn't tell you were gonna spend 12 hours throwing rocks at a barrel, were they? Yeah. How about anybody here meeting a vet for the first time? I mean, really meeting a vet. Hi, how's it going? Nice to meet you, I'm Lucas. I don't know, maybe in coming here tonight, it'll mean something new for you when you say, thank you for your service. It's okay. It can be awkward for us too.
Dad, I had that dream again last night. I was there.
This is Phil. Philip J. Melio, U.S. Army. Phil joined the Army in 1967. Y'all know what was going on in 1967? He served in West Germany and South Vietnam.
The sky and earth lit up with napalm and rockets. Artillery shook the earth. Bloody screams, body parts in piles like trash. Odor of carrion. Rats scurrying, searching, hunting, insects crawling all over me, and I cannot move. Tropical heat, torrential downpour, and chills and fungus grow on my skin. Dad, I called for a medic. No one could hear me. There and here at the same time. Explosions marched into our compound. Someone yelled, "Incoming!" Sirens blared and it rained chunks of earth. A vacuum of life on both sides of the war. Vietnam to New York City. And back again in my dreams. Dad, I miss talking to you when you were here, about there.
Identifying deaths during the Civil War was not an exact science. It wasn't until the government established graves registration in 1864 did they develop procedures to do so. In the meantime, two civilian groups, the U.S. Christian Association and the U.S. Sanitary Commission, collected and registered the hospitalization and deaths from field hospitals, military reports, and battlefield visits. where they often searched the clothing of the fallen soldiers to find identifying information. They combined to write thousands of letters to families with information that was unfortunately not always correct. Walt Whitman's poem, Come Up From the Fields, Father, tells of a family who has received such a letter about their son fighting in the war. He focuses on a mother who has had her child taken, a casualty of war. It is a universal lament that speaks across millennia. Come up from the fields, Father. Here's a letter from our Pete. And come to the front door, Mother. Here's a letter from thy dear son. Down in the fields all prospers well, but now from the fields comes Father, comes at the daughter's call. And come to the entry, Mother, to the front door, come right away. Fast as she can, she scurries, something ominous, her steps trembling. She does not tarry to smooth her hair nor adjust her cap. Open the envelope quickly. Oh, this is not our son's writing, yet his name is signed. Oh, strange hand writes for our dear son. Oh, stricken mother's soul. All swims before her eyes, flashes with black. She catches the main words only, sentences broken.
Gunshot wound in the breast, cavalry skirmish, taken to hospital.
At present low, but will soon be better.
Grieve not so, dear mother.
The just grown daughter speaks through her sobs. The little sisters huddled around, speechless and dismayed.
See, dearest mother, the letter says Pete will soon be better.
Alas, poor boy, he will never be better. While they stand at home at the door, he is dead already. The only son is dead. But the mother needs to be better. She with thin form, presently dressed in black. By day, her meals untouched. Then at night, fitfully sleeping, often waking. In the midnight waking, weeping, longing with one deep longing. Oh, that she might withdraw unnoticed. Silent from life, escape and withdraw. To follow, to seek, to be with her dear dead son.
Mama, why are there so many dead bodies lying in the streets? Why did we have to leave our home?
A bad man wants to hurt us and our friends and neighbors.
Why, Mama?
He wants to take control of our country.
Can we stop him?
That's what your papa is doing. Antigone, why did you try to bury your brother?
I owed it to him.
But I had forbidden it.
Those who are not buried wander eternally and find no rest. I owe it to him to unlock the house of the dead, in which my father and my mother are waiting to welcome him. Polynices has earned his rest, Uncle Creon.
Polynices was a rebel and a traitor, and you know it.
He was my brother. Mama, I want to bring flowers to the dead people lying in the streets and to pray for them.
Oh, it is too dangerous to go outside right now, my love. But we can pray for them here in the bunker.
Mama, everyone looks so sad and scared.
Are you scared, Amelia?
No, Mama, because I can still sing. Przez neverlau Ukraini, ni slava, ni volia, się nam radiom uloti, uśmiechnięta dola. Шринут наші горішеньки, як роза на сонці, запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці.
We will not spare either our souls or bodies to get freedom.
І покажем, що ми, браття, козацького роду.
You're probably wondering why I'm wearing this uniform. Well, I'm a veteran.
Oh, this is Paul, or Paolo Pilateri. He served on the USS Intrepid during his last tour of duty.
Hey, I mean, pretty good for me still to be fitting into this after all these years, right? I mean, it's like every Veterans Day or so, I take it out of the closet and I take it as a challenge, a test, and try to get it on, and so that way I can prove to myself I'm really not that old. Yet. You know, for most of my friends and family, I'm the only veteran they know. I mean, it's not that I started out to be a veteran. I mean, it couldn't have been further from the truth. You see, it all started one day when I was a senior in high school, and I was working in the men's furnishing department of a local store, and I would be eyeing Barbara Papsdorf across the aisle in women's accessory in her miniskirt. I mean, that girl had legs. And it was later that night, I came home after work, and my mother was already in bed, and I went into her room and to see how she was doing, and I said, "Hey, Ma, how are you?" And she was looking out the window, and I said, "Hey, Ma, what are you looking at?" And she didn't answer. And I kind of reached across the bed, and I tried to sort of give her a little, you know, a little buzz on the cheek, a little kiss. And when my lips touched her skin, she was as cold as ice. After the funeral, the high school guidance counselor called me into his office and he said, "Well, son, you're about to graduate. Go out into the big bad world. What would you like to be?" And I looked him in the eye and I said, "Happy." Most of my friends all started to go off to college, most of them not knowing what they were doing, either just figuring out how to drink beer, smoke weed, chase girls or boys or both, and I just felt lost. The truth of the matter is, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, and I just wanted to get as far away from everything as I could. So that's when I started noticing those signs that said, Uncle Sam wants you. And join the Navy and see the world. And even though I was living in the epicenter of it all in New York, there was something about that seemed to speak to me. So I went down to the local office and I took some tests, and the Navy said to me, well, son, we could send you to a school where you could earn a top secret clearance. But then you'd have to go overseas on probably some classified missions, and there's a war going on, so it could be dangerous. And I thought, clandestine missions overseas, dangerous war going on, top secret clearance, and I thought, well, it's just like James Bond. I mean, he always gets the girls and he always dodges the bullets, right? So where do I sign? And that's how I slowly began to become a veteran.
I'm the musical interlude. Now, I don't know if you know it, but soldiers are some of the biggest complainers ever. We gripe about everything. We gripe about the food, we gripe about our superior officers, we gripe about the guy in the bunk over there who snores all night and keeps us awake. But those are all individual gripes. There is one universal gripe that every single armed forces person will tell you about. Just ask. Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I hate to remain in bed. For the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You gotta get up, you gotta get up, you gotta get up this morning. Someday I'm going to murder the bugler. Someday they're going to find him dead. I'll amputate his reveille and stomp upon it heavily and spend the rest of my life in bed. And then I'll get that other pup, the guy who gets the bugler up, and spend the rest of my life in bed.
Mr. Gorbachev, take down this wall.
That's it right there, yep. And then later, the words of CNN journalists who spun an exciting narrative for their 24-hour news cycle. Operation Desert Storm and its exploding missiles were broadcasted live on air. It was the first time we, as a country, witnessed war in real time. It was a confusing spectacle.
Yes, confusing. But CNN coverage made war seem easy and doable. Live on TV, it's a war. It was theatrical, it was over in 24 hours, and very few people died. But the real messiness of war doesn't just happen in an officially declared war. It's in the training. And the cost includes soldiers, their families, support personnel, and civilians, which I didn't know at first. When I arrived at my basic training, I was 17 years old. I was 2 weeks out of high school. It was Seminole County, north of Orlando, and my school was on Ronald Reagan Boulevard. And yes, there are now Proud Boy leaders who are living in that community. I was young and naive. For some odd reason, I was patriotic, or so I thought. My older sisters were hippies, and being a middle child, the military was my way to rebel. And of course, I knew better than everyone. I wanted adventure. I wanted to escape my family. I wanted to escape all the naysayers. Girls don't do that kind of thing. I like you, but you won't make it. I'm scared for you. I think you'll cry. The question that I was not expecting and what really surprised me was, aren't you afraid you'll lose your femininity? My femininity, lose it. I was gonna be an army officer. Lose my femininity like one loses their marbles? Like marbles in a bag that would crash to the floor and then roll all helter-skelter? Or would they be lost quietly, left behind in various training areas, a few at the range, a few in the mess hall, a few on bivouac? Would I accidentally leave my marbles in uniform pockets and then they'd be lost in the laundry, never to be seen again? As if I could lose this thing that I never even thought about. I never sat around with my hippie sisters and discussed femininity. I always just saw it as part of my personality. And it was me. I was Kate. But was that the only value people saw in me? Was that the most precious thing I had to lose? Not my brains or my hard work or my life. I think that this needs some context. At the time, women were not officially serving in combat. Society was just not ready yet to think about women coming home in body bags. The belief was still there that women were nurses or admins, and we were set way back behind harm's way, somewhere at the rear of the battlefield, wherever that was. But in reality, women were already serving in combat support positions, which is what I eventually did as a platoon leader, then a company commander, and I led troops. I did like real military war things. And at that time, modern warfare had actually evolved, so there wasn't a clearly defined forward edge of the battlefield. And for what it's worth, Gulf War I saw the first woman prisoner of war, POW. But I don't think that sunk in with the great American public right away. But I digress. It's young people permanently maimed or gone forever. That's what is lost. It's death. And for those of us who have seen death, it's the final image moments, the flashes of what you witnessed that twists up in random, intrusive visits from the past. The first death I experienced, I was 19. It was a 4-year-old boy on the north shore of Oahu. I met him on a stretcher lifted into the Huey. There I was, I'm in Hawaii for training, and here I am on a medevac mission. I'm just a ride-along. I'm only there because I wanted to be a pilot. The first thing about this ride, and I think many probably know about this, is that it's super loud on a Huey, and the vibrations shake your teeth. I'm not medically trained past CPR and first aid. Hey, take this! The crew medic screams and hands me a plastic bottle with a tube attached to it. I put it into the boy's cute baby pink lips. He had sticky brown curls plastered to his head. Squeeze it! I do. After so many awkward squeezes, and I don't know what's going on, I yell back, is he gonna be okay? No, he's dead. I wonder now how long that medic was gonna let me just sit there and squeeze that bottle. No, he's dead. Like nothing, like every day, like no big deal. He's dead. I will never forget his innocent face. but I'm thankful that he looked peaceful. So we returned to the hangar. I don't remember much. Then it's, hey, will you come over and have dinner with the wife and kids? Afterwards from the commander. My stomach hit the floor. I couldn't eat. I couldn't cry. I was stunned. And since I had left the aviation unit where I didn't really know anyone, who could I share this with? No one. I carried it with me in silence. We weren't trained to deal in civilian deaths, certainly not a 4-year-old boy killed in a car crash. That's a cost. It's the vivid memories that we carry.
Mom, going upstairs to do my homework. It's always Mr. Bullock, screwing up my weekends. Dang, this thing is short. It's not gonna be easy. Let's just Google the first sentence here. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. So this is the opening sentence to the Gettysburg Address given by Abraham Lincoln on November 19th, 1863. Fourscore. What does fourscore and 7 even mean? 87 years. So, 87 years. 87 years before 1863 would be 1763 plus 13, 1776. 1776? Isn't that when we issued the Declaration of Independence and America became like a thing? Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. I mean, have there been other nations built or conceived on the idea that all were created equal before the United States? Wait, how can Lincoln say that this nation was conceived on the idea that all were created equal when our founding fathers, as Mr. Bullock taught us, had enslaved people? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. And what battle was he talking about here? Lincoln gave this speech to dedicate the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a cemetery created for the casualties of the Battle of Gettysburg, the bloodiest battle of the Civil War with 23,000 Union casualties in just 3 days, and is what many historians consider to be its turning point. 23,000, dang. You know, there was almost 23,000 people at the Mets game the other day. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. Now, what does consecrate even mean? Consecrate, to make or declare sacred, to devote to a purpose with or as if with deep solemnity or dedication. All right. So if not Lincoln and whoever was listening to him, who did consecrate it? The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here. but it can never forget what they did here. Okay. Dang, that Lincoln was a humble fellow. So, if they, in a larger sense, couldn't dedicate or consecrate this cemetery, I mean, why gather everybody together and give this speech? It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Damn, that's a speech. Hey Mom, I'm coming down for dinner.
All right, Lily. Let's hear what you have to say.
It's a tough speech, Mr. Bullock. To me, the Gettysburg Address is a reminder. A reminder that the United States is an ongoing experiment that's aiming at an ideal. And like any good experiment with a lofty goal, it requires constant refinement and improvement. And that job or cost is borne by both service members and civilians alike.
Two score and a decade gone, near midnight without exception. No warnings, no clue. Wailing thunder of harmonics untuned, multifarious and varied, a symphony sans conductor. Thompson disappeared. A piercing cry from Quinn pointed me to a hatch. Drop, crawl, and lock away to a sandbag shelter between us and them. Earthbound matter in a salvo from afar. Between the thunders, cries for mama and flaming amber. A soldier screamed. When landmines eviscerate, the uninjured retaliate. Protect us, dear bunker. Give us the chance to taste blood of gorillas this night. Shield us from suffering, an ache, a yearn to celebrate the heavens, to see a hushed sky.
I knew a simple soldier boy who grinned at life in empty joy, slept soundly through the lonesome dark, and whistled early with the lark. In winter trenches, cowed and glum, with crumps and lice and lack of rum. He put a bullet through his brain. No one spoke of him again. You smug-faced crowds with kindling eye, who cheer when soldier lads march by. Sneak home and pray, you'll never know the hell where youth and laughter go.
Who are you? Oh. You're one of those reporters hanging around the hospital here, interviewing guys from the Second World War for human interest stories. I don't talk about the Second World War. I don't talk about the Second. My grandkids used to ask me, "Hey, Bob, what'd you do in the Second World War? Did you kill any Nazis?" I never told those kids anything. I didn't know. I didn't want them to know what I had seen, what I was told to do, what I did. So I never talk about the Second World War. Wait. I got a human interest story for you. I was 18 years old. I was being deployed overseas the next morning. I had one night in New York. What did I do? I did the same thing every GI did when he hit the city. I went to the stage door canteen. Oh, did you ever hear about it? Oh, it was this nightclub run by the people who put on the Broadway shows, the showgirls and the dancers and the singers and the actors, the backstage people. It was in a cellar on 44th Street. And every single member of the United States Armed Forces was invited there, free of charge. Free of charge. Army, Navy, nurses, WACs, no discrimination. Officers, enlisted men, blacks, whites, nothing. Free snacks, free drinks, no alcohol. Now, the men who played on Broadway, who were the big actors, I've seen a lot of them in the movies. Well, now, they bust the tables and they wash the dishes. But the women, the stars, well, they were ladies. They were ladies. They were something. They served the food. Now, the night I was there, Betty Davis was there. Oh. I walked right up to the table and she said to me, "Hello, soldier. Have a piece of cake." No. But I wasn't there to see the Broadway stars. I was there for the big band. Now, in high school, I was a dancer. I was not a dancer, I was the dancer. I knew every step from the Charleston to the Merengue. And all the girls, they loved to dance with me. So I said to myself, hey, why not? Why can't a little Irish kid from Jersey get out and show him what he could do? And that's what I did. I danced 17 consecutive dances with 17 beautiful dancing ladies. We did everything. We did the waltz, we did the marimba, we did the foxtrot, you name it, we did it. And at the end, I led a conga line around the whole club. Oh, it was fabulous. It was the best time. And when it was all finished, we all just collapsed, and the girls, they all came around, they kissed me and they hugged me, and oh, it was fabulous. And then they said, hey, Jumpin' Jack, you need a little rest and you need a little refreshment, so come on over to the table here. Eileen will take care of you. So I walked over, and I turned around, and I saw the most beautiful green-eyed, red-haired Colleen I have ever seen. I left my heart at the stage door canteen. I left it there with a girl named Eileen. She kept on serving donuts till all she had was gone. I kept on dunking donuts till she caught on. I must go back to the army routine. And every doughboy knows what that will mean. A soldier boy without a heart has 2 strikes on him from the start. And my heart's at the stage door canteen. It was gone. I went back after the war. I was gone. The stage door canteen, the big band, the 17 dancing ladies, the donuts, Eileen. Only the memory of a soldier boy who went to war, lost his leg in Germany, and never danced again. And that's why I hate to talk about the Second World War.
Closets. How many times do we open them, take out what we need, and shut the door? I look at my closet now, and I see the suits and dresses I used to wear to auditions and opening nights. After 2+ years of COVID spent in t-shirts and yoga pants, these dresses feel awkward. When I wore them constantly pre-pandemic, I think they served as my armor to shield me from the insecurities and judgments of a performing arts career. I look in my closet now and I see my old army uniforms and nurses' scrubs. I wore them with pride to serve my country and to provide care for my patients and their families. Now they feel like costumes, something I put on for self-tape auditions to demonstrate authenticity. I look in my closet now and I see the beautiful high heels that I should no longer wear after my foot surgery. I mean, to tell the truth, they mostly hurt. But they are designed to accentuate the feminine. The curved leg, chest out, stomach in. Wait a minute, chest out, stomach in, that evokes marching combat boots. I gave them away too. They didn't fit anymore. I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. But what does MJ 3.0 embody? I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is through, Stay tuned.
I'm just curious, show of hands, who still has like any of their old uniforms? I'm just curious. A little bit, yeah. It's just, you do? Really? I thought you said you got rid of all of them.
No.
Not to put you on the spot. It's just interesting to me because I did get rid of, I mean, in movements with moving, I had to get rid of stuff, you know, over time. So I don't have anything of that. But speaking of history, not only am I a veteran, I'm the daughter of a veteran. I need to raise this a little bit more. My father, Oscar Mel Lunsford, served at the end of the Korean War. He was out a good 10 years before I came along. But Oscar didn't really speak much about his service. He didn't claim veteran status. He didn't belong to any veterans groups or bond with any of the guys from his old units. I think Oscar reveled in his long hair civilian status. And when I expressed interest in the military, he adamantly said, "No, Kate, don't do it." He died in 2009, and when I finally saw his paperwork a few years ago, I was surprised. Surprised to learn that Oscar had served in both the Navy and the Air Force. Who knew? And how did this happen? I had no idea, so I did some research. Let me see if I can get this straight. In 1951, a law is passed that requires all males between 18 to 26 to register for the draft. Dad would have been 19. Then, in 1952, Congress enacts the Reserve Forces Act, which that required all drafted or enlisted to 8 years obligation of military service. Wow. And then after the term of active duty was completed, all were assigned to standby reserve and could be called back for war or a national emergency. 8 years. That seems like a really long time. Which is probably why they changed it in 1955. From the date on Dad's paperwork, I think he was drafted into the Air Force and upon leaving active duty signed up for the Naval Reserves. I do know for certain that Oscar left the service, got married, started college, and then began having children with my mother in that order, and he never went back to the military. One other thing that I learned is that the draft laws actually exempted him from future recalls because he was married and had children. There were lots unspoken with my dad. So now, mostly I have his actions on which to reflect. For example, when I went through basic training, we carried M16 rifles. And then as an officer, I wore a pistol. It was a Beretta, M9, along with an NBC mask when we were deployed, and other stuff too, but that was kind of the bulk of it. NBC mask, that was a gas mask to protect against nuclear, biological, and chemical attacks. But I also carried my experiences, both good and bad. Funny, I'm realizing now that I didn't share certain stories with my dad either. I didn't want him to worry about me. But now I wonder what Oscar might have carried. I mean, physically, yes, what were his weapons, his uniform and such, but also emotionally. From my memories, I've come up with 3 things I think my dad carried back from the war. First, Dad wore those black military glasses for years. He's in old family photos from my childhood wearing those government issue types with dark, thick frames. They were officially called TEDs. That was their actual military nomenclature, TED, Tactical Eye Device. Ted's, I thought they fit his personality. He was an engineer and quite bookish, but thankfully he upgraded by the time I was in high school, thank God, and he got rid of the pocket protector too. But those glasses, they called those BCDs when I served, birth control devices. Birth control devices because the glasses allegedly made you less attractive so you couldn't get laid. I know, wait a minute, that can't be true. Anecdotal evidence from my family that those glasses were not a form of birth control. My mother was pregnant 8 times, 2 miscarriages, and 6 births. Wow, I had not made this connection before, but the BCDs failed him. Did they call Ted's BCDs during his time? In my time, they went from C rations to MREs. Those are some fun acronyms, huh? But again, I don't know. The second thing was Dad smoked cigarettes for years. Thankfully, he quit when I was in junior high. Interesting fact, cigarettes were included in C rations until 1976. It's true. Soldiers would get a mini pack of either Lucky Strike or Camel cigarettes, along with waterproof matches in their meal rations. And smoking was encouraged. Who can forget the sergeant in charge saying, "Hey, smoke them if you got them," and then everyone would take a break and smoke. They even did this in basic training. So smoking was actually even rewarded and accommodated. Oscar left service in '54. He met my mother when she visited her boyfriend, who was Dad's roommates. I will spare you the details of family lore, but the truth is I don't even know most of those details either. The Great Generation. Not so great about talking things out, but also I bear some responsibility because I don't know that I asked. The third thing Oscar carried back from the war, I experienced firsthand that Dad had something akin to post-traumatic stress. The terms battle shock and combat fatigue were used in my father's day. He didn't have an official diagnosis, nor did my family have a name for it, but when he would nap on the living room couch, we learned pretty quickly to stand way back and quietly call out, "Dad, Dad, are you awake?" Because if you went too close to him and tried to shake him awake, bam, Dad sprung up from the couch ready to fight. He'd land in a judo stance with his fists up in defense. It was kind of scary to see my father react violently. It took a few seconds, but he'd come to and realize that he was home. Over time, this stopped. Besides a startle response, Dad was quick to agitate and seem stressed. He'd get very quiet and lock his jaw, as if he was biting back his anger. These are more signs I've learned that are symptoms of PTS, but was that all from the war? Or was that for the totality of his life? I mean, Oscar came back from the war, quickly married, then worked while going to school, and then had 6 daughters over 12 years. It's understandable life was stressful. I looked this up too. PTSD wasn't determined as a diagnosable condition until 1980, when it was listed in the DSM. Not sure about anyone else, but it seems the term PTSD wasn't used widely in our culture until after 9/11. Oh, I do remember a few tidbits. I did hear from my dad, but they were more like anecdotes. Anecdotes are usually short and amusing. My dad seemed like short complaints. "I taught judo to the platoon. They talked about me in front of me in Spanish." Or, "I remember guarding these nuclear missiles. That was in Florida." Dad served in Florida? Nuclear what? Oh, I guess I was young and busy and I didn't have the time to truly truly be curious and understand what he was saying, but no excuse, right? I do wish I had said, "Tell me more, Dad," and recorded his responses. Just to hear about his military service, but not just to hear about his military service, but to hear more about his life in general. See, Dad was born in 1932, and at the age of 9, he heard that Pearl Harbor had been attacked over the radio as he sat playing on the living room floor. His older brother was born in 1918. Such history. So Oscar was opposed to me joining the military, but once I was in, he was very proud. And he told me that often. "Kate, I'm so proud of you." These days, with the world so changed from when he was here, I truly miss him. I'd say to him, "I'm proud of you too, Dad." If I could offer one piece of unsolicited advice to others, it is this. Ask questions and really listen to the older people in your life. Capture their voices if you can to help keep them with you forever. And with that, I want to say thank you for listening to me and all of us veterans today. I'm thankful what remains unchanged is that we have each other and we have our stories.
So, when most people enter the armed forces, they're generally sent down south somewhere, to South Carolina, Georgia, Texas perhaps, for basic training. But in the Navy, the only place that they offer basic training is the Great Lakes Naval Training Center on the western shore of Lake Michigan, halfway between Chicago and Milwaukee. Now, you might think, well, being on a Great Lake may not make that much sense, but it is the Navy. And when they send you there in December, and it's 22 degrees below zero, and the wind chill's minus 60, there's not a lot of things you're going to do on the water. And Katie, you were saying you had an M16? We used to have M1s in boot camp, and they used to make us walk around without our gloves on. And it was cold. Because the truth of the matter is, boot camp is 10 weeks of them beating you, throttling you, trying to break you into 1,000,000 pieces, physically and mentally, to see if you can survive this, because perhaps if you can survive this, you could survive a war and not come home in a box. Now, the best thing about boot camp are the 79 other guys that you meet. You meet people from all over this country, and it is the most exhilarating experience if you're open to it. Take this one example. There was this one guy, Waldo Phillips, and he was from OK, Oklahoma, and we called him Country. And he was sort of green and strange, but he was 17 years old and already on his second marriage. So, the greatest scare of boot camp is called mail call. That's M-A-I-L. And when they have mail call every week and you don't get a letter from home, you are reduced to just a whimpering pile of tears somewhere in a corner, because you feel that the whole world doesn't know you exist and nobody loves you. And Country, when he would see you in that corner whimpering, he would come over and he'd go, "Hey, Paolo, would you like to read my mail?" And he was always getting letters every week from that second wife. And he would show me pictures of his wife in sort of sexy attire and negligees and all sort of dressed up and long black stockings. And I would say, well, country, thank you so much for sharing this with me, but I have to ask you a question. Who took the pictures? Now, the strangest thing about boot camp is that absolutely nobody wants to be on a ship. Now, why would you join the Navy if you weren't going to be on a ship? And the reason is because on land, there were always ample women happy to meet some sailor who had just come into town. So, on the last day of boot camp, they call out the assignments. And out of 80 recruits, I was the only one who got a ship. And all of my fellow shipmates came around and they all said, oh, we're so sorry, Paolo. Oh, you Mr. Lonely. Oh. And I was just destroyed. And then suddenly I got my assignment and I was assigned to the USS Intrepid. Yes, the boat on Pier 86 that's now a museum. And it was set to go on a world tour. And suddenly, when I thought I was shit out of luck, my buddies were sent to Adak, Alaska, Guam, Manila in the Philippines, and I was sending them pictures of me with girls from Italy, Spain, France, Norway, Denmark, Copenhagen. It was fucking A! It was great.
Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed. But the hardest blow of all is to hear the buglers call. You gotta get up, you gotta get up, you gotta get up this morning. Someday I'm gonna murder the bugler. Someday they're gonna find him dead. I'll amputate his reveille and step upon it heavily and spend the rest of my life in bed. Don't cheat your bodies. That was the call of my drill sergeant as a sea of nurse recruits struggled doing push-ups in the wet grass at 6 a.m. We didn't blame him. It was his job to make us physically fit for duty. But on the last day of drill, we showed up in these t-shirts. I still hate to get up early.
This is an MRE, meal ready to eat. Any veteran or person unfortunate enough to find themselves near a disaster area will know them well enough. Essentially a self-contained meal with a shelf life of an average human being, the MRE consists of an entree. Here we've got chicken chunks, white, cooked. Some other little goodies like barbecue corn nuts, tortillas, beverage powder. You got a heating element to heat it all up. All sorts of stuff. I ate hundreds of these during my 4 years of service, and at times I really enjoyed them. When having to eat them for long periods of time, my fellow soldiers and I would get really quite creative with our meal preparation. So, these individual components, they became like a form of currency that we just traded amongst each other to help build that desired meal. But the time to play Master Chef wasn't always available. I have distinct memories of being given only 7 minutes to eat an entire meal. All this. And I did it. Or I should say we all did it. But you know how long it took me to uneat an MRE? This is an actual article from the Military Times on October 23rd, 2019. Titled, Meal Refusing to Exit. Scientific study backs long-held belief that MREs make it harder to defecate. Quote, an Army study has confirmed a belief service members have known in their hearts and intestines to be true for generations. Living on a meal-ready-to-eat diet contributes to a dwindling frequency of bowel movements. This intestinal traffic jam, the authors concluded, is largely attributable to the MRE's lack of good bacteria found in fresh foods such as fruit or yogurt that provide that extra nudge needed. The cost of war? Constipation.
Real-life Army story. I was drafted into the United States Army on June 28, 1955. I did my boot camp at Fort Dix in New Jersey, and then the Army sent me to Fort Sam Houston in Texas to be trained as a combat medic, to be eventually deployed to Korea to participate in jungle warfare. Guess where they sent me? Germany. And to an anti-aircraft battalion where all that happens is a couple of guys sit around the gun. No jungle. So, it's the Army, you go. So I go to my new base in Kaiserslautern, Germany, and I'm on a truck. I get off the truck, and before my feet hit the ground, somebody comes running up and says, "Which one of you guys is Private Bullock?" Well, here I'm, the Bullock. "Private Bullock, report to the orderly room." Okay, so it's the Army, you do it. So I go to the orderly room, and I face the most bulldog-faced sergeant I have ever seen in my life. And he says to me, "Are you Bullock?" "Yes, Sergeant, I'm Bullock." "Bullock, did you go to college?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Bullock, we've been waiting for you. You're gonna solve our problems, aren't you, Bullock?" "Hope so, Sergeant, if I can." "Bullock, I'm gonna tell you my problem. I got a shitload of combat medics and no combat. And I got 125 anti-aircraft technicians and no payroll guy. Bullock, I'm asking you to be the payroll guy." "Well, Sergeant, I don't know anything about payroll. I'm a combat medic." "Bullock, I'm gonna ask you a question. How much you weigh?" 129 pounds, Sergeant." "Bullock, I'm gonna tell you something. Nobody fucks with the payroll guy. Gabish?" "Gabish, Sergeant." And that's how I went from jungle warfare to high finance in the United States Army.
Life on an aircraft carrier is like nothing you can imagine. It's this bigger than a football field, 100,000-ton piece of metal that somehow travels around the oceans of the world and doesn't sink. It is just incredible. Now, being on a carrier with aircraft means it can be pretty dangerous. So everyone is quarantined into certain spaces and only allowed to go where their work spaces are. Now, when they called flight ops, because I had a top secret encryptology clearance, I could go anywhere I wanted. So I would go up to the top of the superstructure, way up at the tallest place on the ship, and I would watch those planes coming in and landing and taking off, and it was the most incredible sight you've ever seen. I mean, I've taken all my nephews out on the Intrepid, shown them the bunk where I slept and the cafeteria where we broke bread and the fantail where we smoked our cigarettes at 2 o'clock in the morning and talked about the girls back home. And one of my nephews even wrote his college entrance exam all about his veteran uncle. And while that was nice, I kind of felt that he saw us veterans as if we were antiques, artifacts, dinosaurs from some long ago era. I mean, the fact of the matter is, my alma mater is the Intrepid. I mean, that's where I grew up and became a man. Before I was on the Intrepid, I had never met a mentor or a father figure, or someone who would show me, the way through the complications of life. But here, on the Intrepid, in the middle of the ocean, I met David Curley. Now, David was a Russian translator, and during the Cold War, every aircraft carrier was followed by a Russian submarine a mile behind it and a destroyer out on the horizon. And that destroyer and that submarine would talk to each other in Russian. David would copy the Russian, translate it to English, give it to me, and I would send it to Washington, D.C. by teletype communications. David would talk about the theater, about how I was in New York and where Broadway was, and that I was in the center of it all. And he kept giving me plays by guys like Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams and some upstart named Sam Shepard. And he lit a fire in me. We became fast friends and inseparable. And on every liberty, we went out together and caroused and protected each other in every red light district and in every tattoo parlor. And I remember this one time. We were in Rota, Spain on liberty. And we had met these English girls who had come down to the Costa del Sol for a little vacation. And after a night of singing, dancing, drinking, laughing, we decided to pair off with a few of these ladies, and we checked in at this local hotel. And it was later that night that there was a knock on my door, and it was the girl who was with David, asking if she could get into bed with us. And I didn't know what to make of it, but the next morning, we all met for breakfast, and when David came out of his room, he came out of his room with Orlando, the night clerk who had checked us in earlier that morning. And David came up to me and he said, "I like men. Is that okay?" And I said, "David, you're my best friend." And he came to me and he put his hands on my face and he said, "I love you." It is the only time a man has ever said those words to me. And David Curley changed me for good.
Good morning, viewers. Our topic today is one of great delicacy.
The death of a military man or woman while on duty and the manner in which his or her loved ones is notified has to be one of the most difficult services that any military operation faces. In wars of the distant past, the soldier's family might never know what happened to him. Dead soldiers were buried en masse on the battlefield. The soldier simply did not return. During the American Civil War, a more humane approach was developed through a system of official and unofficial correspondence. During the Second World War, such information was delivered in the form of a telegram, starting with the words, "I regret to inform you." In today's armed forces, such an announcement is made in a more compassionate manner. Our guest today is a member of the U.S. Army Chaplain School at Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina. Good morning, Chaplain. It must take a special kind of bravery to walk up to a parent's or spouse's door, knock, and deliver news of the death of a loved one. How do you prepare yourself for such a heart-rending task?
Chaplains themselves do not usually deliver the news of a death of a loved one. The Army designates a person of equal or greater rank to deliver that news. In most cases, the task is assigned to a friend or an associate of the fallen soldier. I think the most important thing that I do as a chaplain is to be there as a spiritual support to the family and to the officer who delivers the message. In most cases, we usually only have a few hours preparation. The designated deliverer and the chaplain probably have never met. And upon arriving at the home, we meet and sit in a car for a short time to steel ourselves for the coming meeting. What is important to us is to honor our commitment to the soldier by doing the very best we can to deliver compassionate, though very painful news.
I assume that time is critical because in these days and ages, when soldiers have access to email and satellite phones, you certainly want to make sure that the official process is the manner in which people are notified, that they do not find out through friends or by social media.
That is particularly important because of the need to communicate accurate information. Cell phones and satellite phones from associates in the war zone have almost immediate contact with the family members of the deceased. The service tries to put some policy on these circumstances, and members who survive an attack, for example, or if one of their buddies is killed or wounded, they know that it's important that the family get the information officially, to make sure it is as accurate as possible. Today, in many combat zones, a blackout is put into effect until families are officially notified.
I wonder, as soon as somebody answers that doorbell or that knock, and they see you and an officer or non-com there, do you think they know what you're there for?
The symbolism of having a government vehicle in front of your house and two soldiers walking up to your door is certainly daunting. When they open that door, it is almost as if our words have no way to soak into their consciousness because of what they see. Two soldiers dressed in their Class A uniforms, yes, it's unmistakable, and every time I've made that walk, before the notification officer gets the word out, the grief has already started. In some cases, families are even reluctant to open the door. It's almost as if they can say, no, no, no. It will at least delay what they are anticipating. And in those cases, it takes a little bit longer, not only to get into the house to personally deliver the news, but also to help support and encourage them. I mean, the grief is sometimes just overwhelming. Once the notification officer and myself are in their living room, we get a chance to talk a bit. I try to identify if they have clergy available for the family. a minister, priest, or rabbi that we might be able to call, or other family nearby who could spend time with them. The shock of that initial notification quickly requires some other compassionate support. We usually stay for 30 minutes to an hour. Every experience within every home is different. Each family grieves in their own way. When we feel it is appropriate, we leave them with their grief.
Those men upon the sidewalk I have never seen before. 2 soldiers stiffly formal, they are looking at my door. My husband dead, my daughter gone, my boy I sent to war. And now for my protection I have just a wooden door. The neighborhood is quiet. The children called indoor. The eyes of lifelong neighbors are looking at my door. I know, I do not know. Such thoughts I must ignore. I'll close my eyes and praise the Lord, defiant at the door. The men are slowly moving now, a silent, deadly corps. They wear upon their uniforms the patch my Charlie wore. My legs can barely hold me, my ears a rising roar. Why can't I think more clearly? I can only see the door. Protect me, Lord, defend me. Your strength I now implore. I take a breath. I trust my God. I open up the door.
The young dead soldiers do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard in the still houses. Who has not heard? They have a silence that speaks for them at night, and when the clock counts. They say, we were young. We have died. Remember us. They say, we have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done. They say, we have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave. They say our deaths are not ours, they are yours. They will mean what you make them. They say, whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope, or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say this. We leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning. We were young, they say. We have died. Remember us.
A stick and a stone, it's the end of the road. In a forest of trees, here I am, all alone. It's the end of the line, it's this last sip of wine. I thirst for love. My arms and my legs, my flesh and my bones. This cross on my back says here, I don't belong. I hunger for justice, I thirst for love. carry the weight, we carry the weight of the world. It's a nail in your hand, it's a thorn in your head, it's a cry in the night of the souls of the dead. It's a sting, it's a pain, it's a world gone insane. It's a river humanity just can't contain. Here, my prayer. Take this weight from my shoulders, these tears of despair. If my time runneth over, then let it be so. It is done now, come take me, I give